Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dads, listening to Tomcats, talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. Get some weed now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Ahsokast. This is our show here on the Penny Bloom Podcast, where we revisit all the good stuff from Ahsoka Tano's story, heading in to Ahsoka coming this August. I am Colton Robertson. I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it's always a pleasure to have you. And today we're talking a pretty inconsequential arc as far as probably the overarching story of Ahsoka Tano. However, it is the first arc in the Clone Wars, and therein pretty important in and of itself due to that. We also do get some important information about Ahsoka and some nice little character building moments. But how'd you feel revisiting this? It'd been a while since I watched the Clone Wars, and I forgot how much I love that, man. Like, I forgot how much I love this show.
It's interesting rewatching through the lens of Ahsoka. You know, that adds an interesting layer on the rewatch. But also, there are times where, like, if Ahsoka's not on screen at all, I kind of just sit back and enjoy the episode of Clone Wars for the time, which is really fun. And it's a joy just being able to watch Clone Wars again. Like, they're so easy to watch, just 20-minute episodes. I love just hearing the narrator's voice, you know, just getting you started, you get going, and it's
Malevolence.
Nice. It's nice watching Clone Wars.
What a fucking threat the Malevolence would have been if it had been able to remain a part of the fucking Separatist fleet.
Can you imagine it hyperspace, it just shows up, powers down whatever, destroys it, boom, hyperspace, next target, like, I don't know, that it could have been bad. And that's the thing is, like, the Death Star just worked. Like, Project Stardust, like, yeah, all right, well, yeah, we got to go with this now. But, like, this could have been, like, what if they just had, like,
stages?
Imagine they'd had, like, 10 of these. Like, or 2. I don't know, even 1 is enough. Like, if it just stays up.
And that thing was fucking massive, too. Yeah. Like, seeing it in comparison to the ships that they were flying, it was like, holy shit.
They had trains. Like, they had a whole train system in the ship.
Yeah.
You know, I guess probably all of them do, now that I think about it. Like, they are probably all that big, like a cruiser. Like, to get around, I guess it's probably like a mini city. I guess, like, really. Like, when you think about it, even like a, I don't know, they always look like Jar Jar Binks to me. With the
Republic,
two, you know, those things are fucking, like, that's a lot of people that are in there, you know. They got to sleep somewhere. You got to, it's basically a goddamn city at that point.
Yeah, no shit. But yeah, this was a cool little arc, and it was a good way to kick off the Clone Wars as a series, and it was a good way to kind of exemplify Ahsoka Tano in a role that is kind of a voice of reason for Anakin, which is really cool. You know, I think there's a complaint to be had about Ahsoka up to a point, or about the treatment of Ahsoka, not Ahsoka herself, where she is truly there to serve Anakin's story. And I think they do a good job of balancing that at most points. Like, she serves Anakin's story a hell of a lot, but they also do a good job of making sure that she's her own character with her own agency and stuff. Like, she stands on her own. Like, my favorite scene of this arc is a very, very early one, whenever she takes the stand against the council, like, vocally. She's like, no, there are people out there. And just because people have died in the past doesn't mean there's nobody to save now. We have to help. And Palpatine's like, so outspoken for someone so young. And And Ahsoka's like, oh God, I might have just fucked up. But like to even have that instinct, to be willing to go against Yoda and Mace Windu and the Chancellor of the Republic and Obi-Wan Kenobi, like you got balls, like you are bold and brave. And I really, really fucked with that. So like I had to go with that as my favorite scene, simply because it showed that what happens later on. She leaves the Order because of her disagreements with the way that they do things.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't work. It doesn't quite work out, especially with her personality. Like, and that's the thing. That's why I'm so like she has her own personality from the jump. I don't really see like I think maybe watching it through the lens of Ahsoka helps as well. But like I always kind of viewed her early on as like the audience's voice. Like she says a lot of things that the audience, like, you just want to say. Like in the moment, you're like, oh, well, why don't we just do this? Or like, like they're still like, because we know that Plo Koon and there's a couple other droids out there that are still alive. So it's like, yeah, we want to tell, Palpatine and Mace Windu and Yoda, like, no, still go out there and get him. So like, she's kind of like the audience,
she's speaking for us.
And I really like that. Like, I almost went with that for my favorite scene, but it's just right after when they're on the ship, leaving to go to there, and Anakin's like, yeah, I know, I agree with you, that's just not how to go about it. Like, you need to learn how to play the system. Like, he teaches her literally how to play the Jedi system, like, right now. This is like the first lesson that she's learning, like, in the show, at least we had the movie. Right. But like, this is like the first lesson that we're seeing her learn in the show, is how to play the Jedi system.
And I think it's
hilarious.
I think it's cool that Anakin and Ahsoka, it's so fascinating that Obi-Wan Kenobi goes in incredibly opposite direction of who Qui-Gon Jinn became. It's funny that I just keep going backwards. I was like Anakin and Ahsoka, and then Obi-Wan, and then Qui-Gon. No, but like it's funny that Obi-Wan goes such a separate way from Qui-Gon, because Anakin takes after Qui-Gon in so many ways, as far as his disagreement with the Council, kind of taking things into his own hands and doing things the way he thinks should be done. I'd say Ahsoka is that to an even greater degree, because she doesn't struggle with guilt and dark side nature. She doesn't struggle with that sort of thing. Like she's shown later on in a different arc that she could have that potential, but she knows what she needs to do to prevent that. She hasn't taken action such as, I don't know, killing a bunch of people in a murderous rage. She doesn't have to carry that with her in there, and she doesn't have this inkling towards the dark side. But just the way that she's willing to defy the Council and think for herself, a trait that Anakin has that seems so thoroughly inherited from Qui-Gon Jinn. Like, Ahsoka feels the most comparable to a Jedi like Qui-Gon, which I really, really love, because she finds her own relationship to the Force, and she thinks for herself, and she takes the extra step that Qui-Gon never did, which was leaving the Order. And like it's what a fascinating character. And I think that even so early, with that all in mind as to what happens later, you can see how the little tiniest seeds of that are like planted here, where this tiny disagreement can just show what her potential holds. And I really, really liked that from this episode. And she's just got so much empathy and so much care in her heart, like she's formed these attachments very clearly, like when they save Plo Koon and she gives him a hug and is like, I'm so sorry. Like, that's not something you see Jedi do all the time.
Yeah, no, not at all. And was it revealed this episode? Like, I think it was whenever Anakin and Ahsoka were flying to there. She was like, "Yeah, Plo Koon was the one who
she was like, I guess I should tell you why I'm so passionate about this. He saved me. I would like to save him. He took me where I belong. I would like to return him to where he belongs." Like, just a really passionate and compassionate character. Just I love me some Ahsoka Tano, man. So that did have to be my scene, simply because it just shined a light on so much as to where it could go one day. And I think your scene was a good one too, because again, it shows that learning from Anakin, that streak she gets of
Anakin did agree with her. He was like, no, I fully agree. We're going to go save them right now. Like, that's what we're doing. But you got to realize, like, that's not how they think. You know, that's what Anakin does. You know, he's constantly doing that all the time. He's like, yep, he's deployed himself again. So, like, obviously this is just what he does. And he just is, you know, maybe he could have told it to Ahsoka in a little bit better of a way. I don't know. Like,
well, yeah, but I like that he was like, he couldn't when they were in the presence of like Admiral Yularen, because he would have told Obi-Wan and stuff. Like, whenever they are in the presence of Admiral Yularen and he's like, Ahsoka. And she's like, I know, Master. And she's like, no, what you do not know clearly is the protocol of the Jedi Order. Like, he never says, like, what you said was wrong or, like, what you want to do is wrong. He says, he says it in a different way, that you handled it incorrectly. Like,
yeah.
Which I really appreciated. But, there's just a lot of really good little moments between Anakin and Ahsoka here. Like the moment when Obi-Wan pops up on the hologram whenever they're kind of busted, and Obi-Wan's like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, well, we're going after this, you know, we said we wouldn't, but we're doing it. And he's like, well, you need to return to the fleet. And Ahsoka's like, I'm sorry, sir, it was my plan. And Obi-Wan's like, I'm sure. You know, he's like, yeah, I'm sure this was all you, Ahsoka. Your master has no responsibility here.
Obi-Wan knows too well.
Yeah, all too well. That's something he's familiar with. But yeah, that's the first. Frankly, the first episode of this arc is the most Ahsoka heavy. Episode 2, where we get the most character driven storytelling with her. But it is the second episode of this arc that has my favorite line, because it goes back to that Ahsoka being Anakin's voice of reason. You know, whenever they are trying to escort the clone or like save the medical frigate, and they have to climb up over the ion blast and get all the way to the ship and take out Grievous. The goal is to kill him, and that's all Anakin's mind is on. It's not about saving his men. It's nothing. My favorite line is when Ahsoka is like, we need a new plan, and then later on she says, Master, you can make it, but everyone else is getting shot down.
Yeah,
you know, like,
that's good.
You know that you can make it, and you absolutely can. I have no doubt about that. But you have men here who are getting picked off one by one. You need to think about this. And just him being able to recompute in that moment and go, okay, she's right. I need to do something. So after they get done shooting it all down, and Anakin goes, good job, Ahsoka. It's not necessarily because they did the shooting. It's because it was her idea. You know, it was her idea.
Yeah, after they walk off, they land, you know, after they get back, like they're all walking out, and Plo Koon's like, all right, time to go report to the council. And then Anakin's like, all right, yeah. And then they're like bragging at each other at what they did. And Ahsoka's like, well, I think it was my idea to change the plan, you know, and then they both walk off. So they're like, oh, yeah, I guess, whatever, you know, from a certain point of view, actually is what I think Plo Koon actually says.
Point of view.
That was almost maybe my line. I have that is like, I think it was my idea to change the plan for all those reasons is like, you know, that's what led to, you know, Ahsoka actually being the one to have that mindset in the time and think clearly. But I think I'll actually go with, whenever in the first episode, whenever they are saving Plo Koon and Anakin's about to leave, like Palpatine even called Anakin and was like, you got to come back. And he's like, all right, yeah, we got to go. But then Ahsoka was like, she sensed Plo Koon, you know, and Plo Koon was like calling out to her. Or like, you know, you could just tell. And she was like, we have to stay. And Anakin was like, I know, Ahsoka. But she's like, I know he's alive. Like she says, I know he's alive. I can sense it. And then she just boom, and then it just goes right to him. So I don't know. I think I'll go with that line. It's more fun too. So I think I'll go with that one for my line. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, it was just really a good. Like I'm glad we included this Ahsoka arc now instead of starting. You know, at the Mantis arc.
Mortis, yeah.
Or Mortis. I always call it Mantis. Mortis. Yeah, Mortis. But this, I feel like it was very important to see, like, just her first appearance in Clone Wars, just in the show, you know. And then also, like, I think there are some important character developments that she does see here, and like actually teaches Anakin, you know, a very valuable lesson here too.
Yeah, I think that's the strength of. I think this little arc just shows a lot of the strengths of Ahsoka's character, and you know, she does become less and less relevant as the arc goes on. You know, I wanted to go. I was tempted to find a shot with Anakin in the cockpit, Ahsoka in the gunning seat right behind him for
That's
one
what
of the.
Yes, I couldn't stop laughing whenever I saw it. Like, or maybe there were some scenes where it looked good, but then there were some where like Ahsoka was like barely peeping over like the window and like was like looking down at Anakin, and it just looked really funny. And I don't know, I do have a few of those just because I thought they were funny, but there are some like good looking ones of Ahsoka like back there.
Also,
I don't know.
I loved the interaction at the beginning of the second episode whenever Anakin's like, "You'll be with me, you'll be my gunner," and stuff, and she's like, "But you have R2 for that. Like, a droid can do that." And he's like, "Oh, but I just want to spend quality time with my Padawan."
You don't
know?
like my flying, she says, and I don't know. I don't know if it's actually that though. Is the thing. I think he wants her to be on his ship to protect her,
to be safe.
You know, like it's not that. Not that, no, it's not your flying. It's not that he doesn't trust, you know, in her ability. It's that
he trusts his ability above all else.
Exactly.
He's like, I know my ship won't get shot down. Like
I'm Anakin Skywalker, and he doesn't know he's the chosen one yet, but he knows he's won every battle he's pretty much walked into so far. And yeah, no, that was a cute little moment there. But you're right, yeah, in the last episode she's basically just back on the ship and like comming between them, you know, and setting up comms. So like she's not very big in the story, but like it's, I don't know, you cut back to her just on the ship. There's some nice shots in that episode with Ahsoka, but they're very brief. But I think my favorite shot, it's at the end of the first episode, I think. No, it's at the end of the second one. Whenever they just save the medical, all of that, you know, stuff, and the Kaminoan that's in there. Anakin and Ahsoka go to talk with her, and you know, to thank them, but Anakin's like, all right, you know, I kind of got to move on. People died still. I got to go prepare for the next battle. You know, I gotta go prepare. And he walks out to the hangar, and it's him just looking off into space, and R2's next to him, and then Ahsoka walks right, you know, up behind him, and there's a part of it where she's like very close to the camera, but still it's not like blocking Anakin. Yeah, and I didn't know whether to go with that one or whenever she's like actually side by side with Anakin, because she's kind of
either
like
way, it's all one continuous shot.
Yeah, it was a beautiful shot. You know, right? You see like two planes looking out into space. You know, and he's just looking out there. You know, no words spoken. It's just, oh no.
Yeah,
nice
that
shot.
Was definitely the most powerful like imagery as far as there's always a shot, I feel like once an arc where they're like, here is the back of a couple characters looking off into the distance, and it is going to be the most gorgeous shot.
Yeah, I guess my shot of the Clone Wars is, I guess, Ahsoka looking the back of Little Stink and Ahsoka looking off in the distance, and now I got R2, Annie, and Ahsoka.
They always have one. There's one in the Mortis arc too, and we'll get to that whenever we talk about it here in a little bit. But like, and it's another just gorgeous shot. Ahsoka's unfortunately not in it, so I couldn't go with it, but it's another gorgeous shot. But my shot, I went less with the actual like impact as far as, you know, it's Anakin, R2, and Ahsoka all right next to each other, the family that we find, and I went with simply because of the framing. There are so many shots that like you can tell Dave Filoni had this inkling where he would absolutely one day be able to direct the shit out of live action as far as camera placement and everything. Because at the beginning of episode 2, season 1, episode 2, the first episode of this arc, when you see the bridge of Plo Koon's ship and it's got the little divots dug out on the sides, and he's walking through the middle of it, and he's standing there. There is a camera angle from the inside of one of those divots where they show Ahsoka walk all the way up the bridge, all the way to Plo Koon and Admiral Yularen, and I went ahead and stuck the screenshot of once she's there talking to Admiral Yularen and Plo Koon as my favorite shot. But just like the upward angle, just everything about it is so thoughtfully framed. It could have been so simple. It could have been it could have been from a completely different angle, but that was a conscious decision that they made to animate it that way, and I thought it was so good that I had to go with it. And
yeah, there were a lot of shots this episode that were camera angle placed, like very clear strength of animation here. Like, and I remember, like, every time someone was climbing out of a ship after a mission was like done, like the camera was always like above the ship, showing the person climbing out of the ladder and looking down at like Plo Koon and Ahsoka, or like Anakin was either climbing down looking at Ahsoka and Plo Koon, or Ahsoka was climbing down looking at Plo Koon and Anakin, or something like that. And it just, the camera was, I don't know, so it was my sleeper pick for my shot if I didn't go with their backs, standing off into space, because it just shows the strength of animation and having just the ability to put the camera wherever you want and not really have to think about the restrictions of putting a physical huge film camera up somewhere and getting it there, and a whole sound system, all that stuff that goes with that. And yeah, it's, I don't know, the shots just in the cockpit too, with Ahsoka like looking back over and looking at Anakin, like it shows Anakin so well. I don't know, it works so well for a show like this.
And there's just so many little moments in these episodes that show the strength of Ahsoka's compassion and stuff. Whenever they're like they're shutting down the ship and they're turning off all the power, and they're like, Plo Koon goes, "The droid," and then Ahsoka runs up to R2 and is like, "I'm sorry, buddy," and clicks him off. Like she has to apologize to him. It's not like a simple, he's just a machine I can turn on and off. I have to apologize to him before I do it. Just let him know that we need to do this. And then earlier in the episode, right after they save Plo Koon, whenever she runs up to him, "Are you okay?" And then the next thing she says to him is, "Your men are safe. Like, I know that is what you're concerned about. Not that you are okay, but that your people are."
She's very aware.
Yeah, like she's just a really smart character, man, and she's a great. Like I said, the word I come away with from this episode with is compassion, as far as what Ahsoka is capable of, and just incredible in this one. And she's pretty much a non-factor in the third episode of this arc. She's just kind of on the bridge with Plo Koon, watching them do things and telling them Padme's on the ship and stuff, and etc.
There is a shot in the bridge where they see the Malevolence. Is that what it's called?
Malevolence.
Malevolence. Yeah, crash into the moon. After Anakin hotwired it. Crash, and they see it blow up, and it's Ahsoka, Plo Koon, and they're all just looking through the window and looking at it blown up. And I almost went with that because it's like angled. It's not straight on. It's angled to put the moon more in perspective of like the window, where the windows are in the ship. And it's just
speaking of shots that we almost went with, I have another one, and it was also in episode 3. I think episode 3 was just kind of like a really really good looking episode where they're talking to Luminara over the hologram, and it's kind of the way that scene kicks off is kind of like this aerial view of them talking to her, and it's Plo Koon and Ahsoka side by side facing Luminara, and that was another one that looked really really good. And I was tempted to go with that. I like when a scene is like really thoughtfully lit also. And when you could see like the soft blue glow on the animated characters, it'd be easy to ignore that and just go ahead and show them as they are. Like I just appreciate things like that. So that was one I was tempted to go with. But before we get into coolest droid kill, because I have one, my question time is here.
Ooh, okay, here we go.
This is one that doesn't have a right answer. It's entirely up to you. This is where it's been nothing but trivia up to this point, really. But this one, entirely up to you. I'm curious, and take your time, throw out some options. Doesn't have to be just one. It's a big question. What is your favorite word in the English language? Like sonically, you hear it and you're like, that is a nice word.
I guess Oh, just off the sound of the word itself, because I have a word, I guess, that I like for the meaning of it. I don't know if that's the same thing, but by like hearing a word. Good sounding word. I've always been obsessed with the word bubbles, and I think it's a word that it's impossible to say not funny or in a positive tone. It's impossible to say the word bubbles angrily or negatively. And I think it's just a funny word. But a word that has meaning and I think is beautiful is like sonder. It's not, I guess the word itself isn't like good to the ears, but it's just, the idea that everyone and every person you see has a life as complex as you, and that we don't really think about that as often as we should. But for just to hear a word, I guess, yeah, I more know sounds, and like my brain's in Star Wars mode, so like I'm thinking of like a seismic charge, but that's not a word.
Yeah, right.
That's not
Seismic's a pretty cool word.
Ooh, that's true. But I guess my best answer right now would either be bubbles or sonder for what you're asking for.
Obviously, I had a lot more time to think about this question as I came up with it and stuff. So, like, putting you on the spot like that's not exactly the same as the answers I've come up with. I really enjoy the word serendipity.
That's nice. What does that mean?
Serendipity is like it was meant to be. Like it's serendipitous. It's
Ooh, okay. Serendipity. That's just
it was serendipity that this happened. Sorry, my dogs came down here when I came back down. Sorry.
Maybe it was serendipity that your dogs had to walk. I like serendipitous that your dogs had.
Serendipity.
Serendipity. Wow. Okay.
That's a good one. I also enjoy the word archipelago.
Archipelago?
It's like a landform.
Is that an animal? Okay.
It's just like the shape of land. Like a
archipelago.
Japan is an archipelago.
Just the shape of Japan from like aerial, like from above?
Yeah. Well, it's like I can't remember the exact definition of archipelago because it's like close to a peninsula, but it's not the exact same as a peninsula.
A group of islands or a sea or stretch of water containing many islands. Okay. So like Greece. Would Greece be an Is Greece an archipelago? That sounds like a Greek word. An archipelago. Yes. It is an archipelago of about 3,000 islands. Wow. Okay. That's archipelago and serendipitous. I gotta know how to spell that. Serendipity. There's a movie called Serendipity. That's probably a romance movie. It is. That makes perfect sense. Serendipity. The occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. Serendipity. I see now. Serendipity, archipelago. 2 words that I'll never forget now.
Serendipity and archipelago.
I thank you for adding them to my vocabulary.
I also really enjoy words with a lot of syllables.
Mm-hmm. Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia, that's a good one.
That's a good, because it describes, it's kind of an onomatopoeia. Like, an onomatopoeia is kind of an onomatopoeia in itself. Right. Almost. Right. I feel like you could, in a comic book, you could have a onomatopoeia. I don't know what that would represent, but
there is actually a character in DC Comics, a villain, named Onomatopoeia.
No. Does he just pow, kabam, and that's all he does?
His power is like the noises he makes are like devastating.
Pow! Wow! Amazing!
Yeah. I guess that was question time today. I just wanted to know what your favorite word in the English language was.
Hell yeah. Sonder. Or by sound, maybe bubbles. Or onomatopoeia.
I'll go classic with this one. Wanderlust. That's a goodie.
Ooh. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
A classic.
I remember as a kid, that just took me a couple months to get down. Like, actually, that took a while. Yeah, good words.
Yeah, good words. But yeah, to top off the episode, favorite droid kill was not an Ahsoka one this week, simply because I don't think she killed a droid this week.
She didn't. Complete pacifist this week.
Indeed. I went with when when Plo Koon force pushed the clone up over the droids and the droid killed them from behind.
Yeah,
that shit was hard.
I mean it's pretty undeniable. So that's why I left. I was thinking of any other droid kills that happened, and on the ship in the hyper wherever the hyper the engine, I guess hyperspace engine. Is where Obi-Wan's trying to go down there and shut it off, and then Grievous is there with all the droids there to surprise him.
Yeah.
I think it's in the third episode, and then he force pushes the droidicas like down the lanes to like push all the other droids off.
That was hard. Like some bowling.
I guess it's a multiple. It's not a single droid kill, but it was kind of like one. You know, it was like one, two, three. You know, sort of thing, and then he got out of there. So I guess I'll put. So she wasn't there though. So it's like, but
yeah, no, that's why I was like, the droid kill, you can open it up a bit because she might have a very simple droid kill, and I don't want to just go ahead and pick it because it's Ahsoka. Nah, you know, this is where it gets fun. This is where the fun begins. But
we got a hello there, the reverse.
Hello there.
And then General Kenobi, like I don't know, yeah, you got it was so good. So yeah, it's interesting watching it through Ahsoka, you know, the eyes of Ahsoka. But then if we were to watch this episode, like we'd definitely be focusing way more on like the Padme, the Obi-Wan, the
absolutely.
Anakin,
That's what's crazy is that there's so much more to these arcs that we will not be talking about simply because it doesn't affect Ahsoka. And maybe one day we do a full Clone Wars something, but won't be anytime soon particularly. But we'll be reliving all the biggies from Ahsoka's story here before long. And next week we are going to take a stop in Mortis. We're heading to the Mortis arc, skipping a season from season 2. We're skipping season 2, going straight to season 3. And there are a lot of arcs in season 2 and 3 that are pretty formative on Ahsoka. So it's hard to do that, but we only have limited time. We don't have all the time in the world. We got to skip some stuff.
Indeed.
So that'll be next week for the Ahsokast, the Mortis arc, season 3, episodes 15 through 17. Very excited for that. And with that, we'll conclude this episode of the Ahsokast. If you would, head to patreon.com/PennyBloomPod, where you'll find over 50 hours of exclusive content, including all sorts of book reviews, comic book reviews, and movie reviews. All that's over there and more. And for $3 a month, you can support this podcast financially, which is huge because it costs me money, and I don't make any off of it unless it's over there. So that'd be very nice. Head to Twitter, follow @PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram @PennyBloomPodcast. Remember to leave a 5-star rate and review, and keep coming back every week for the next several weeks for the Ahsokast, because it will not just stop whenever we finally reach Ahsoka the series. We will be covering Ahsoka the series, so that'll be right here on the Ahsokast. We're covering Game of Thrones in a rewatch podcast. It's spoiler filled for the whole show because it is a rewatch podcast. So go ahead and head over there on Mondays. We do Winter is Blooming. Very, very fun show. We got our comic book journey through film going on right now. And I believe this week will be Hulk or X2. X2, I believe, is this Friday. So go ahead and check that out. It's a very, very good movie. X2, X-Men United, this Friday. And with that, I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And it's always a pleasure to have you. Remember, peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Ahsoka Tano.